All right, so this is the monitoring portal. The website is https://solarnoc.datareadings.com. If you just go to that website, it'll bring up this interface here, and when you have your username and login, you'll be able to proceed. So for now, there's a default one I set up called Laguna Woods. This was the read-only one for Johnson Controls I made. But everything I do here will be the exact same for the 5, 6, 8, whatever usernames you need.
Is there a manual that goes with it?
A manual?
Yeah, or so
That's a good question.
I'm
sure there is one. Yeah, PDF.
So I'm gonna do I'm gonna
Maybe
provide a
we'll
link,
support. Let's see.
and then what we'll do is we'll do some screenshots as well to put in a book.
perfect. Okay.
They have,
I'm sure there's something
here-
that we can do.
It is if you're in here, you can click on support, and then here there's like trending articles, solar facts, frequently asked questions. I don't know. There's if I had 2 meters to the client, anyway. Just a general interface.
So you signed in, Chris.
Yep. Okay. So the default then takes you to this dashboard, which gives you some system highlights. So for example, you've got 8 total sites. There's 8 laundry facilities. It gives you sort of a summary of status. So for example, system disconnect, device fault, zero generation, performance index, relative performance, and performance expectations. So we can kind of go through each one of these and what these readouts read. So if there was a fault out in the field, this would tell you. The other thing we can do is we can set up email alarms, which I think you're getting, right?
I'm getting.
You're getting those. So
We want that.
yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen one nuisance trip already. That where for whatever reason the breaker tripped, and then it was just re-engaged, and the fault went away. But anyway, so system disconnect. This is when the system is either completely shut off, or if the Locus unit is failing to communicate. So you either have, in a system disconnect fault, you've either got, as you put it, total system failure, or your cellular modem is not communicating for some reason. Sometimes you'll see a system disconnect fault because there's a roaming issue with the cellular provider, AT&T or something like that, and if it doesn't clear itself within 15 minutes to 60 minutes, then you might actually have a legitimate fault. You can always walk out and take a look. I've seen these pop up from time to time, and then I've seen them disappear for no other reason than some kind of roaming fault. When I did a tour and walkthrough on it, all of the 8 modems were reporting 2 out of 3 bars. So the bar indicator on the AT&T cell modems here have 3 bars. They were reporting 2, which is slightly above average strength. So
we should do it at least half an hour before we start emailing everybody.
Correct. Generally, any kind of
generate an alarm.
Yes.
Okay.
Currently, to the I don't. There's no formal list set up. I think we set one up for Jim, myself. I think. Are you copied on it? I'm not sure. And I know Steve is. So it's like when Edison shut the power off, all of a sudden we started getting emails. 76 errors, you know, including system disconnect faults. Yeah.
The question is so if the communication goes offline,
You will get a system disconnect fault if communication goes offline.
Okay.
So a device fault.
You get them all ordered.
Device faults are going to be things like the weather station's not reporting. It could be a fault from one of the inverters for a ground fault potential issue. This is going to be specific to some kind of a hardware device, whether it's the weather station, the PV locus meter, the inverter fault, which could be ground fault or inverter or breaker trip, something like that. Low voltage, for example. Zero generation is going to be either related to it's basically stating the inverters are not producing any power. Typically, you'll see a device fault and a zero, like an inverter error for a ground fault or some kind of a inverter level fault is what you most commonly will see. Is you'll see some inverter will device fault and then it'll stop producing power. Most inverters, when there's some kind of a device fault, they will just shut off. They'll still communicate, but they won't produce power. And then you'll see a zero generation alarm. And then performance index, relative performance, and performance expectations are all tied to some benchmarks that are either historical or anticipated. And this is more for Johnson Controls in terms of performance guarantees. Okay, so we go through this. And then as things trigger, you'll see, for example, 1 site, 3 sites, however many sites, it'll tally them up and tell you. Okay.
Can you build a specific site for that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll go into that next.
So that 0 would turn into, let's say, a 1, and that is now a link.
Correct. Yeah.
And that
So.
link would take you to the information.
Right. And so this just gives you.
Can you click on the 8 total sites then?
Yeah, I think you want to go to Fleet, but let's see. I haven't clicked on that one. Let's see what this. Maybe this takes us to Fleet. Yep, there. This is also the Fleet view. So all I was going to say is let's go to Dashboard. So in Dashboard, it's what it defaults to is your dashboard. Generally, I just sort of look at this and go, yeah, whatever, and then I click over to Fleet. Fleet view is your very micro level information, which we'll see. Or you can click on 8 total sites, and it'll take you to the same situation, the Fleet view. So in the Fleet view, you have all of the descriptions and the statuses, the total DC capacity, which is sort of a higher stated number than the actual AC capacity, which we call the nameplate. But this is where we're going to get all of our micro level information. Are there any questions so far between Dashboard and Fleet? No,
Dashboard is home and Fleet is
the
first level of looking at
Correct.
site performance.
Mm-hmm. Along the top, there's also this reports and analytics. There's alerts. There's some settings. So, for example, user list. And then there's some support links here as well.
What's in the column before alerts? There's a column right before, I'm sorry, on the screen itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's a charting tool.
Reports and analytics.
Character.
Oh, this little guy? Yeah, that's the charting tool. It's also within reports and analytics. A lot of this stuff's, yeah, there's multiple links. So if you click on this, this will take us to a charting tool specific for Laundry 23. Okay? So if we click on that, it pops up a new window. There's more information in Fleet that I want to share before we jump into the charting tool.
Sorry, then.
No, it's okay. It's fine. We can kind of bounce around.
Takes a while to download.
Well, it's only I'm actually on my phone.
Yeah.
3, 4G.
Anyway, because it has to collect data.
Yeah, correct.
3 days.
Yeah, so this is a nice what I was going to so here if you click on these, it'll take you to the charting and interface specific to this laundry room, right? So if you click on this one, I'll go to 50, and you'll see how it pre-populates all this information. It says Laguna Woods, Laundry 23, and then it has L-Gate 101, L23 SMA inverter 1, L23 SMA inverter 2, L23, and so on. There's a total of 7 times 8. There's 56 inverters throughout the entire facility. And so if you just went over here to Reports and Analytics and I clicked on that, it's going to take you to a drop-down menu of anything you want. If you want to look at how inverter 1 at L23 is producing to inverter 1 at Laundry 88, you can do that report. There's theoretically an infinite amount of reports you could satisfy yourself with.
So we can generate reports. I mean, we can actually print them out from.
Correct. In fact, I think I already set up an auto-generated monthly report for KWH per month.
Great.
And that gives you a total generation summary by inverter and by the L-Gate. I can go in a little more detail about what all of this stuff is. But let's go back to the Fleet. And this is designed more for just quick view. Hey, I want to get a sense on what's going on out there. I want to show my family, my grandkids, whatever. You want to go out and, show the public, have a cocktail party, I don't know, whatever. So this is kind of a nice view. And it shows you, look, all green check boxes. That means everything's working just fine, hunky-dory here. So now, if you had alerts back over on the dashboard, these green check boxes would convert to those little alert icons that we saw earlier. But right now, short of someone going out there and maybe throwing some switches or breakers, we won't see anything because everything's working just fine. So for example, if you want to, let's say there was some kind of an alert going on here, you could then click on this plus line. It's going to load, and it's going to show you. We could change site addresses. I think it's this site address for the entire place. Yeah, I think that's a default. That can be reprogrammed. That's fairly easy. It gives you the install date of when the project was approved. I believe this is the this is the date at which the system was first turned on. No, I'm sorry, that's startup date. This must be the date at which the mutual approved the permit, I think is the permit date, like the signed final date. Then there's the PTO date. This gives you the date that Edison formally recognized the power generation, even though it was operating on 116 through 2.9. 2.9 is when they actually sent you the letter, you have permission to operate. Oh, I'm sorry, it looks like startup date was 2.8. So no, we started the system first reporting to Locus on 2.8. PTO was issued on 2.9. It looks like we installed it, and by installation that means like everything's done, all QC everything on 116. And that will repeat for every single site. If you want to look at all the different components within each site, and again, it's all very repetitive. You'll see, for example, L24 has the same exact stuff. Install date, PTO date, that should probably be 116. That's an error. We can change that. Startup versus PTO. And again, you have all of this information. If you want to see the latest data, you just press load latest data, and it'll show you exactly what's going on here. So within each site, you have what's called an L-Gate 101. That is the meter that reads the power right before Edison receives it. So Edison has their meter, and you guys have your meter. It's called the customer meter. This is like they're almost right by each other. There's probably maybe 3 feet of wire between your meter and Edison's meter, so you're really capturing exactly what Edison should be capturing as well. Okay? Then you have all of the inverters. These are all of the individual inverter outputs, and you'll notice that if you add all of these up, you're really close to this number. There could be some slight variation. The two explanations: one is the inverter registered values are they're not like what you would consider a utility grade metering system. There's, I believe, up to 2% measurement error fluctuations on these values, versus this, which is a utility grade meter, which I believe has 0.2% measurement fluctuation, which is very precise. And it has to do with the quality of the measuring components.
Well, you're also rounding it to 2 decimals.
And you're also rounding 2 decimal places.
So you're not going to find 2 tenths.
Correct. And there's some line loss between the inverter, when the inverter is registering its data in here, and then the other thing you're also competing with is timestamp. You can see this timestamp is at 9:29. These ones are at 9:10. So there's a time lag. What Locus does is, as data comes in, my understanding is they, after about, I think, 15 to 30 minutes, they reconsolidate the data and try and map it up to get the timestamps as close as possible, so that you actually are getting a true, instantaneous snapshot, which you're never going to truly get, but it's pretty darn close. And whether anybody really cares, I don't think so.
So the question is around what they would do here is you would go back to, can we go back to that? Yeah. So Can you minimize that on that, the subtraction?
Yep. Boom. Yep.
And so the alert would come out,
Mm-hmm.
and it would show the fault. You would maximize that.
Yep. You click on this. Exactly. Yep.
And then.
And you would see here, in here there would be a warning icon.
Right.
For example, if you had a zero generation alarm, it would show here. I think it would show here, and then it would also show over in here, like inverter 2 is 0 generation. Again, we can't really see that until you actually have to physically go out and like turn the breaker off or turn the inverter off if you want to actually simulate an issue. So,
Right, but no, that's where they would find it.
Mhm. Yep. I think actually,
That's all right.
yeah, okay. I have a sample site of one that actually has a fault. It went out this morning. I can show you. But different. It's a different project, different
Right,
system.
let's access this and let's.
Okay.
Just as a note.
Yep.
When you get an email, it will tell you which site and what's wrong, right?
Correct.
It'll say inverter, blah, blah, blah.
It'll
or
tell-
it'll
yep.
say you'll get all the inverters.
Yeah.
You know, so you already know when you get an email which site you're dealing with and what the general problem is, and then you can go in here and you can verify that, and this gives you that overall view rather than trying to sort through the individual emails and going, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
Well, and that's a great point, Steve, because this is a monitoring system.
Exactly.
Right? So if you wanted to go in there and monitor the system and you had going into your fleet, you know, Phoenix, ourselves, we have many projects installed, you could have a large dashboard.
Yep.
But as you're receiving these alerts, that's when you'll want to attain. I don't think you'd want people just going in there checking these things arbitrarily. That's just a waste of your day.
Exactly.
So
But
if
if an
it's
alert is
set it
generated-
and forget it,
Right.
we're trying to provide you guys a window to say, okay, if I was going to call a technician, where would I send them? And what could the issue be?
Right.
And that's it. That's what a monitoring system does.
Right, and that's what you guys are doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So you get an alarm, you guys, hey, you reach out, somebody would call up and say, hey, we got it over here. It looks like inverter 2 at laundry 23 has this issue. This is our plan and we'll be out when. And that's it. I mean,
That
it's
makes
really,
sense.
it's really very basic, and that's why once we talk about the portal and accessing, once you get through it once or twice, you're really understanding that you don't have to do anything. You shouldn't be in the system at all,
Right, right.
unless you're receiving an
So I
alert.
think we need to kind of meet and establish the protocol.
Yeah.
So if there's an alarm or something, we want to know that you guys are handling it and how you handled it and what happened. You know what I mean?
Well, we're gonna have access, so most
Right.
likely we're gonna get those alarms as well, so. by the
Right.
time-
Yeah,
by
you
the
can
time
set up
you're
your
ready,
own
we're
email list.
Gonna, be
That's
aware
correct. I'm
of
just
the
talking
whole-
about monitoring,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You don't
yeah.
want to hire someone just to sit there and
Right,
go, hey, it's
right.
produced, oh, 36.4, 36.3, what's happening?
Yeah.
Right?
No. But
Yeah.
what we'll do is we'll get emails
Right.
ourselves, and we gotta assure the board that this is being handled and how it's being handled. So that's why we need to establish some sort of protocol so that we can inform our board that there was an issue, it's being handled, this is how it's being handled, taken care of. Done.
The other thing about this is the guarantee and the reporting. We have our own people that are monitoring the actual production. So if we find that it dips below a certain, issue or something like that, we might, if the production alarm, a tree branch falls over it or somebody's hanging their laundry out and, the towels blow on top of it or whatever and production dips, we might actually reach out and say, do we know what's going on? So this is very basic monitoring information, but the best part is the email alerts. It's a really set it and forget it table.
If something like that were to occur, are we gonna get an email
Well,
or?
there's a production, there's a
Okay.
production loss, and that's, could you go back to the dashboard, please? So, see it says performance index? That could be an alert, and or if you get down around zero generation as well. So if you're running some tests, if you're working on it, let's say you want to do a scheduled maintenance or you want to change the locks and somebody's out there just testing your disconnect for whatever reason, we would receive that alarm as well just because of zero generation. So it's pretty standard. But again, that's what's for keeping it purely to just a monitoring site. That's what you have.
Your contract performance index values were programmed into Locus.
Right.
And so they're in there. If something were to be underperforming, like right now, if you go to the fleet view, it's when the last time we saw the performance index issue was when Edison cut their power. So if you look at the performance indices for this month versus last month, we're in green territory.
Yep.
I think you had to be at like 80% or something.
Yeah, usually the value is between 75, but it depends because some are overproducing too. So
That and weather fluctuations. So one thing I wanted to point out so there is a weather station that captures some critical data for performance. That's installed at Laundry 88. There's no need to install 8 weather stations because all the carports are all very similar. Pitch and azimuth, it's like less than a degree.
Yeah, that's what I noticed right now.
There-
There's only one weather station for the
Yeah, but all of the carports are designed
Same
the same
angle.
spec. They have different tilts and they have different azimuths, but the tilt is essentially flat. I think it's like 1 to 3 degree depending upon the.
Yeah, I think it goes with the.
So you do have multiple tilts and azimuths, but it's to me it's mostly rounding error.
Virtually the same.
They're all virtually the same, and so your cell readings and your cell temperature readings are going to be homogeneous throughout, and then the wind speed and all that stuff. I mean,
I imagine you have that on your landscaping already. You guys have,
Yeah, we have our own weather station.
right,
Sure.
so you don't have, one for each sprinkler system.
right? Exactly.
So it's very similar to that. You don't want to turn it into a microclimate, but it basically captures everything for all 8.
So the weather data is in L88, and if you want to run a report capturing all of your, if you wanted to compare, say, L90 relative to data, you can go into the reports and analytics. You can pull your L90 data, and then you can pull the L88 weather station data, and it'll make you a table file with weather-corrected data off of L88,
If you need
if you needed to. Yeah. But I think Johnson Controls your guys might do more stuff like that
it.
than
We would, yeah.
anybody else. Sure.
But that would just be a final report.
But that is where the weather station is installed.
So, any questions on the actual alerts or alarms or emails, or let's say this, how to access the information? So if an email came to you and said, Guy, L23, you've got an inverter out, inverter 2, do you feel that you could easily go in there and at least find out what that alert is registering?
Yeah, it'd be great if there was a link that I can click and it takes me right to.
It is in the
Will
email. Yeah.
But sometimes when you there might be multiple emails, and that's what Steve is saying. What I'm
okay.
saying is
Well,
the best part is
well-
that there's an icon that will pop up.
the email alert. Oh, go ahead.
Well, what I just wanted to say, so as somebody that you can go out there and say, well, I'm seeing that it's this issue, and that's what that dashboard is really for. So we don't expect you to go out there and say, hey, let me get the car, tools for my car, right? Everybody's going to be on the
That's
same.
what I call we need to establish.
That's what we'll do.
Everybody's going to be on that same
Yeah.
email. I'm
Yeah.
just talking about accessing the Locus, which is what we're here to do today, right?
No, it seems
So if you
straight.
felt that if you signed in on your own password, a couple of clicks, you can know the information that
Absolutely,
we're
it seems
Yeah.
easy to
It seems pretty
navigate.
easy.
Yeah.
This would be, you guys would be setting up on our dashboards, right, on computers.
The link to get
Yeah,
there,
it's just a double, click it and go there.
Good. Okay, so as far as access and alerts, what else did you want to show us, Chris? Was there anything else?
No, that's all you've got.
And so it's very basic, right? I would not get into production values or trying to do the math and reverse calculate anything unless you were trying to
No,
put
we got
yourself
speed for
sleep
that.
at night, right? Unless you're trying to
I think he already knows how to do everything too.
Again, keep this as purely a monitoring system. It's really very basic. It's a couple of clicks. I think they try to make it. I use, as simple as possible. You can go in there. Obviously, if it's highlighted, it's just like everything else on the internet. It's a link, right?
It's all linked.
And so.
And the emails are linked.
Right.
And on top of that, the email will come out on any updated alarm. There might be a setting, I haven't looked into it, but there might be a setting where if something gets resolved, it sends a new email. It hasn't done that yet.
I haven't seen
No, it hasn't done like a resolution email.
Just,
Problem, go log in, check, and then
So what
Clear
I
it.
would recommend is, so Ernesto, and I think you were on the right track when you were saying you were going to come up with your protocol. You probably want to do one as a follow-up as well. So after you receive your alarm, right, and they're mobilized, they come out, they're going to give you some type of report.
Right.
You may want to figure out how that report goes out to the same people that were on that email list as a resolution.
Right.
So,
Yeah, we need to have some closure, you know.
Yeah, we'll make something about it.
And that's something that you guys will be providing for us, so.
let me do that to you. I'll give it right back to you. So what I've asked Steve to do is, everybody signed in today. If you want to add somebody to the list as a non-attending person for access, I will take this sign-in list back and we will provide you the access. We'll go get each person their own password, right? And then you can set it up as your own once you get your administrator, right? And then, so what we'll do is, we'll give you our addresses as well, and that way on the resolution, we'll circulate the same email for whatever took place, right? So if it was an inverter trip or something else, whatever they came out and fixed, they would want to send out a daily report to you, and then
Right.
we'd like to be copied on it, right?
Sure.
So I would like Roger to get a copy of this time.
Yeah, if you can return a copy of that.
I did have a question because I didn't quite understand, it sounds like you understand this, this 5-year access.
Right.
Can I get a better, more clarity on that? I was under, so is this portal only offered to us for 5 years and we have to renew?
Yes, so here's what happens. So when we did the agreement for the solar, we added 5 years for the access, just because it's easy. Sometimes you get in there, like Edison, you're already into it, 4 or 5 months, and then you would have to renew it. Instead of adding it to every year of the guarantee, we just did it the first 5 years as a service. So we put the hardware in under the contract of the installation, and then the first 5 years. If you do not renew, remember, this is for the guarantee. This is not for you to make solar, so.
No, I understand that.
Okay,
I
so
do understand that.
then what will happen is, if you don't continue the guarantee with Johnson, which most people don't, we talked about that, right? On the 6th year, if you want to, you will have to renew this service with Locus directly or on your own.
Okay.
Because
so
we
that's
wouldn't be
what it
under
is.
contract any longer.
Right.
Right.
Directly with, because I thought this was a part, mistakenly, I thought this was a part of the M&V that we've signed on
It
with
is.
you guys. But that M&V, we have a contract for 15 years, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it's year over year, up to 15 years.
Okay,
That's why, so when we gave you the first 5 years, you just got it. That's just on the monitoring. But if you don't renew the guarantee on year 2, you have 4 more years of service without us. On 6th year, you have to renew it on your own.
Okay.
But it's up to 15 years, year over year.
all right, thank you.
Okay, just four more years of service without you, so meaning we have monitoring continued to be
If we
monitored?
pay, it's prepaid.
Okay.
Prepaid.
For 5 years.
5 years.
For 5 years.
That's right, it's prepaid.
It's
So,
a standard offering throughout.
right,
the
most
whole
people
industry.
do it. It's a good negotiation tool because you're buying their hardware.
Mhm.
So you can say, hey, give me a good price on the service, just as these guys do on all their other, install projects. So it's the same thing.
Got it.
So
Okay.
that's part of selecting.
Yeah, but you own the hardware.
Right.
After
You own the
5 years.
hardware, you just need to update the service. No, you own the
No,
hardware.
Now,
Now.
yeah.
The physical
Yeah, the
touching
equipment.
of
It's all
the
there.
equipment.
Oh, yeah, the hardware, but
Right.
not the
The software
software.
renewal will
Right.
come in year
Got it.
6,
No.
and so.
Do you know what that runs, cost-wise?
The
that's a lot.
software?
No.
Do you guys provide that service?
Well, the,
Software to monitor?
To renew it?
Well,
No. Do you have that service to provide the?
You gotta buy it through Locus.
Like a
you have to
Locus?
go through
Yeah, like the
Locus.
No,
Locus?
Not ourselves.
we'd have to go to Locus and re-up the contract with you.
Because it's their
I
hardware.
understand, if we wanted that particular software, imagine
No, it's their hardware.
It's their hardware.
Locus
that's
hardware.
out
Oh,
there.
okay, I see.
It's a Locus box with
Got
a
it.
wireless
Got
antenna
it.
on it.
Right.
It communicates to the.
Got it.
But Steve's-
I have to run.
You're the software guru or computer guru. I bet you
So
can
we
write
need
your own
to set up,
script.
nice meeting you guys,
Yeah,
we need
I
to
think
set
we
up
did.
a
We
meeting.
do have a
It-
short
it-
meeting
it's
with
just-
him afterwards.
Okay, I'm gonna be tied up
I
for
put
about an
enough
hour.
time
or so.
already.
There you go. Okay.
But I would like to sit down with you at some point and.
Yeah, why don't we make this meeting when Ernesto and I both can?
That would be great, yeah, if we could, it'd be awesome. Hey, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
I mean, you can have.
thanks, Paul.
Meeting,
Yeah,
but
Thank you, Derek.
I gotta run.